Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon. Was Kevin Costner's Jon Dutton always supposed to die in Yellowstone? It's quite possible that if Jon Dutton, Kevin Costner, hadn't died in the premiere of Yellowstone Season 5, Part 2, he would have died in the series finale regardless. Fans were curious how Taylor Sheridan would write Costner out of the show after he didn't return for the conclusion. Yellowstone Season 5, Part 2's premiere got the main question out of the way immediately, revealing that Jon Dutton had, allegedly, killed himself in the governor's mansion. While Jon Dutton's death was more complex than it seemed, the premiere wasted no time explaining that Yellowstone's patriarch was gone. Jon Dutton's death outraged some audience members after Kevin Costner's controversial Yellowstone exit. Still, it could be that Taylor Sheridan moved on without Jon Dutton because, in the end, Jon always needed to die for the executive producer and screenwriter to end his flagship neo-Western story the way he intended. That said, while his fate was brutal, Jon's death in Yellowstone Season 5 wasn't far from what Sheridan intended. Looking at comments from key creators, it's pretty clear that Jon Dutton was always supposed to die in Yellowstone, and it was just a matter of when. That said, it's possible that Jon's death was supposed to happen in Yellowstone's finale. All of Taylor Sheridan's other Yellowstone shows witness the death of a major character in the final episode. For instance, Elsa Dutton, Isabel May, dies in the finale of the prequel series 1883, and Alex Dutton's Julia Schlapfer death marks the end of 1923. Jon's passing in Yellowstone's season finale would have fit that mold. Executive producer Christina Voros confirmed Jon Dutton's death was inevitable in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter. When asked about Jon's death, Voros said it was always supposed to be part of the conclusion, because cases Luke Grimes' solution wouldn't have been possible without his father's passing. She said, inevitably, at some point, he was going to die. And, even if there had been 17 more seasons with Kevin Costner, eventually in the story that is the saga of Yellowstone, that's what happens. The patriarch passes and the legacy moves on to his children. If Jon's death was always planned, but intended for the finale, then suddenly Yellowstone Season 5, Part 2 makes a bit more sense. The finale's events all orbit Jon's death. So it could be that Yellowstone's finale was always supposed to show Jon's fate, and the rest of the season was intended to set up its impact. The final chapter was filled with divisive flashbacks to before Jon's death, which could have been the story that Sheridan set out to tell before he decided to move Jon's death up to explain Costner's absence. While it's evident that Jon's death was part of the story Yellowstone set out to tell, it's tempting to think about what could have happened if Jon Dutton lived. If the governor had somehow avoided the attack on his life, he would have continued fighting for the ranch, regardless of whether his adopted son, Jamie Wes Bentley, the Attorney General for Montana, successfully impeached him. If Jon had survived, perhaps he would have finally listened to Beth Kelly Rayleigh, who said the ranch needed to turn a profit and enact her business plans, giving Jon the capital to continue. Technically, if Jon had lived and maintained his claim on the land, the end of Yellowstone Season 5 could still have fulfilled Taylor Sheridan's prophecy in 1883. In a conversation between Jon's ancestor, James Dutton, Tim McGraw, and Spotted Eagle, Gil Birmingham, the Crow Elder tells Dutton that he can settle the Paradise Valley, but that his people will rise and take it in 7 generations, to which James replies they can have it. Jon's ranch would have passed a case eventually, then Tate, Breck and Merrill, restoring stewardship of the land to the Crow's descendants after 7 generations. From the very first scene of Yellowstone, Jon Dutton is shrouded in the dust of legacy, cattle, and consequence. Kevin Costner's stoic portrayal of the grizzled Montana patriarch captured audiences worldwide. But behind the grit and glory, fans have long speculated, was Jon Dutton always supposed to die? It's a question that has simmered beneath the surface of Taylor Sheridan's modern Western like a slow-burning prairie fire. Death looms large over the Dutton family, after all. They are surrounded by enemies, land developers, politicians, rivals, even their own inner demons. The ranch is soaked in blood, secrets, and sacrifice. And if Yellowstone is a Shakespearean tragedy set against the American West, Jon Dutton is undeniably its King Lear. But was Costner's character ever meant to make it on mortality? To understand the role of death in Yellowstone, you must understand Taylor Sheridan's storytelling ethos. Sheridan, who also penned Hell or High Water and Wind River, is not a writer who flinches from death. It's an integral part of the frontier. His characters are often broken, hardened people doing what they must to survive. No one is safe in his world. From Lee Dutton in Season 1 to the near-fatal attacks on Beth and Case, the show has always flirted with the idea that Jon's time would come. Sheridan has hinted in interviews that he sees Yellowstone not as a vehicle for happy endings, but as a mirror of real life where legacies end and nothing lasts forever. This suggests that Jon Dutton's death was always on the horizon. Costner's character as a symbol, Jon Dutton is not just a man. He's a symbol of old Montana, of generational land ownership, of American individualism. In many ways, he's the last of a dying breed, fighting tooth and nail to preserve something that may no longer have a place in the modern world. In that sense, the death of Jon Dutton isn't just probable, it's poetic. The ranch can only survive with change, and change rarely comes without sacrifice. It's possible that from the very inception of the series, Jon Dutton was always a martyr in waiting. His journey isn't just about preserving the ranch, it's about preparing the next generation to shoulder its weight. His death would be the ultimate passing of the torch. Behind-the-scenes drama. Of course, no conversation about Jon Dutton's fate can be complete without discussing the real-life tensions that erupted between Costner and the show's creators. Rumors of scheduling conflicts, pay disputes, and creative differences made headlines in 2023 and 2024. Costner had already begun work on his own Western epic Horizon, which led to speculation that he was ready to ride off into the sunset. Reports swirled that Costner wanted Jon Dutton to be written off in a way that made narrative sense, not just as a casualty of contract breakdowns. This gave fuel to the theory that Sheridan may have been forced to accelerate plans for Dutton's death, or at least reshape how and when it happened. Whether Jon's demise was part of the original blueprint or a creative pivot remains a mystery wrapped in Hollywood diplomacy. But one thing is clear, the man and the myth were increasingly difficult to separate, both on-screen and off. Death foreshadowed? There's no shortage of evidence in the show that Jon Dutton's death has been foreshadowed since the beginning. He's diagnosed with colon cancer in Season 1, a detail that's rarely brought up again but lingers ominously. He's nearly assassinated. He's increasingly burdened by the role of governor, a job that distances him from the land he loves. And perhaps most tellingly, Jon is often portrayed as tired, soul-tired. His speeches are heavy with finality. He sees himself as a relic, and relics don't last forever. In Season 5, Jon begins making decisions that seem less like a man planning to endure, and more like a man planning for legacy. He appoints Beth as the true steward of the ranch. He begins to trust Rip more deeply. He lets go of political ambition. These are not the choices of a man expecting to live to see the ranch's next 50 years. They are the acts of a man tying up loose ends. The tragedy of leadership. In classic Western fashion, Yellowstone paints Jon Dutton as both hero and anti-hero. His leadership has protected the ranch, yes, but often at a steep cost. Murders have been sanctioned, trust has been broken, sons have turned against fathers. The very act of holding onto the land has forced Jon into morally gray and sometimes pitch-black territory. If Sheridan truly meant for Yellowstone to be a modern-day Greek tragedy, then Jon's death is not just inevitable, it's necessary. The tragic flaw in Jon Dutton is not his love for the ranch, it's his belief that only he can protect it. That belief, noble though it may seem, is unsustainable. For the ranch to survive, he must let go. And in a world this brutal, letting go may mean dying.